Chef Andrew here again with another episode of Chefs Talking Chop. So for this episode, I'm just gonna kind of be talking about food and how I got started in cooking and where my career really has evolved from the beginnings of me starting out as a dishwasher and moving my way up to where I am now. I actually started washing dishes at my dad's restaurant, which is an American cafe that serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know, the traditional American restaurant, I guess, where the majority of what we did was eggs, like omelets, and the traditional American breakfast. I started washing dishes there, and then ended up moving up and cooking with him. Thinking back on it, like the first thing I probably ever made was a grilled cheese, or maybe a grilled ham and cheese. And it would always started off me cooking for myself when it was slow, like when I was about to take a break, you know. And then it wasn't so much a standard like 30-minute break, you know. It was when we had time in the kitchen, when it was slow, and that's when you would kind of optimize your time to eat while you were working, which is one of the most beneficial aspects of working in a restaurant, especially when you're a young kid or a younger person. You know, eating at your work is one of the biggest benefits of working. You know, you don't have to spend money on food. You can eat while you're at work, and that really helps you throughout your day, especially when your budget isn't set out right and you're not really making enough or as much money as you'd hope. So I think the first thing I ever made was probably a grilled ham and cheese for myself. And it's not like you would make it home in a saute pan. I was lucky enough to be able to start on a flat top grill, which is definitely a lot easier because it's all set up there. You know, the flat top's pretty big, and you take up a small amount of space to make something simple as a grilled ham and cheese. And then from there, you know, I moved up to actually working the line with my dad, and he would be the one responsible for like doing the eggs and the omelets, which is in that type of restaurant the more, you know, graceful and the more technically driven side of it. So like when an order would come in for something simple that like we would call like a perfect landing, which was just 2 eggs any style, like over medium, and that would come with 2 pieces of sausage, which were patties, 2 pieces of bacon, and then your choice of hash browns, home fries, or like cottage cheese, fresh fruit, or a salad. So like when that order would come in on a ticket, I would, you know, drop the potatoes because those took the longest, and then I would drop protein, meaning, you know, the sausage, bacon, and my dad would be responsible for doing the eggs, which, like I said, was the most delicate part of it. That's kind of like the steak of that meal, where it took a little bit of precision, you know, to cook the eggs to the right temp and the right designation, whether it's, you know, scrambled, soft scramble, over medium, or, you know, my personal favorite, and over easy. And then from there, you know, I kind of worked my way through. There was definitely some rough beginnings because I really accredit that place, that style of where I really learned my speed, because in a breakfast place you get a lot of fast pace, like people aren't really coming there to spend a couple hours as you would in like a steakhouse or a normal just dinner setting. Most people are coming in and out. Most people are coming on their lunch breaks. They got stuff to do. And then also you would get larger tables like church groups where they'd come in groups of 12, groups of 16, and having to fire all those plates at the same time definitely takes a good amount of skill and technique to time everything out so it all comes up at the same time, because I'm sure you've been somewhere where you're with your friends or your family and you guys are out, and then two people at the table get their food and everybody else is kind of waiting. That definitely puts everybody in an awkward situation. Like nobody likes to be the only people with food at the table, and then you're like put in that awkward situation of like, oh, what do I do? Do I start eating? I mean, if you do what you think to be the nice thing and then wait, then your food is cold. So we definitely prided ourselves in being able to put out larger tables in a timely manner and get everything out in the same time, in a timely fashion. That way everybody could eat the hot meal that they came for at the same time. So I eventually moved on from that to what you would call, I guess, finer dining, and I really attribute that to my time working at a place downtown Paso Robles that was pretty established in its time. It was called Roberts, and there we did a lunch and dinner service. I got hired on there to work the grill, and that was really my first experience in what you would consider, I guess, a steakhouse setting. There I was responsible for the steaks when I first got there. And if I remember right, when I started, the menu had 5 or 6 items that I was responsible for, and I think that was a New York steak, a beef fillet, a ribeye, a lamb rack, and then I believe I had one fish dish, and that was a grilled mahi-mahi, which is all, I guess relatively simple. I had a charbroiler, so I was responsible for firing the steaks and the subsequent, or the starch and the veggie that came with each entree. Coming from like a traditional American diner, like if you could imagine, like kind of like a Denny's, when you order a steak, everything really comes with mashed potatoes or French fries. And then when you move on to stuff that's a little more advanced, each steak comes with their own potato, special to that plate, and their own vegetable, special to that plate as well. So I would be responsible for a couple different things at the same time. And working through that with already having, that speed in my back pocket that my dad taught me really helped me blossom into everything that I've came into now. So I kind of worked my way from the grill. I don't really know what my return rate was on, sending out steaks that were not to the right temp, because that's definitely the most intricate part of that dish. And I'm sure you've noticed going out to any steakhouse, the steaks are normally the most expensive piece on on the menu. So making sure that the steak goes out to the right temp, meaning that it all comes out medium rare, rare, medium, and then even, well done to those people who have every right to order it, well done as they want, even though, some people may discourage that. I mean, it's their own prerogative. Everybody has their own preferences in life. So after I kind of honed my skills on the grill and did pretty well there, I ended up moving to what you would consider saute. And saute consisted of, firing a couple different fishes, like a halibut, and I think there was a salmon, as well as like an airline chicken, which was like a chicken breast, and they call it an airline cut because it still has a piece of the wing on it. So there was that. There was also like a vegetarian dish that kind of rotated out. So something like a lasagna or a sauteed vegetable stir fry. And that right there, like that whole station is a lot more intricate because everything that you're firing there, you're firing on saute pans. So kind of similar to how you would cook at your house, heating up pans over a stovetop, and that was definitely the biggest learning experience for me working at Roberts, because now, like when you're firing a fresh fish, you don't normally get the opportunity to send out your mistakes, because when you kind of overcook a fish, you can tell right then and there that it's overcooked. So that one, I wouldn't say is harder than working the grill, but it definitely took a lot more finesse and technique, because when you get an order for a steak, like the steak's the first thing that goes down, and you want to let the steak rest. So you can be you have a lot more grace for your time management on when you're actually what they call firing a table. And firing a table is just when you're being asked to actually put together the plate. Because if you go to a nice steakhouse and hopefully everything's timed out right, when your order actually comes back to the kitchen, they're not cooking that to send it out, because you probably have appetizers that the table is sharing, or you have, salads and stuff that's going out first. So you have all these other things going on. And working saute is a little bit harder because like I said, I don't know if it's necessarily harder, but a little more technique driven, because when a plate or a table is actually fired, that's when you fire your fish, because fish is so delicate that you can't really pre-fire it. At least I wouldn't recommend it. It dries out. So, and a lot of fish has, a 5 to 9 minute cook time if you're doing it right. So I learned a lot of good techniques there, how to make some good demi-glaces, and a demi-glaze is kind of like a traditional French sauce that uses beef stock and red wine, and you reduce that down to make a really flavorful sauce that we put over the steaks. I also learned how to make beurre blanc, which is a dairy and wine sauce. That's also French, that a lot of places use over the top of fish. I think there we used papaya in it, but there's a lot of different variants that you can use, like an orange beurre blanc or a lemon beurre blanc. So that was definitely very helpful. I also learned the intricacies of making rice to order, making risotto, and doing a lot of cool things with different fishes because we had a fish of the day, so that kind of always changed throughout. I worked with everything from ahi, halibut, one of my personal favorites, steelhead trout. So that was very good. And then there I worked my way up. I learned a little bit of garmager, which is just a fancy word for the pantry side of things. And if we're not all on the same page about that, pantry is kind of the guy who starts your dinner experience and ends it. So he's the guy who's kind of doing the most of the cold appetizers, your salads, and then he's also responsible for doing the desserts. So I kind of worked a little bit over there and then ended up becoming the sous chef at the Paso Robles location in Roberts. So when that was being asked of me, again, my falling back on my original experience at my dad's restaurant with working my way up through there and being asked to do some management type stuff when my dad wasn't there really helped me. I really had a good skill set to fall back on. So that was something that I credit to how well I did there when I was being asked to be the sous chef, and I did some orders for the kitchen. I actually did the majority of the ordering for a while because when I actually got brought up to the sous chef position, we opened another location, and so our chef, Justin Picard at the time, was being asked to do a lot of different things, opening the other restaurant, so he bestowed a lot of responsibilities on me, and that really helped me out in my cooking career. Moving on from Roberts, I spent a little bit of my working experience with a classical French chef by the name of Chef Laurent, who owns and operates Bistro Laurent in Paso Robles, and I believe they've been operating for, I think, 19 or 20 years now. They've actually they've actually just changed their name within the past year to Biel Brazier. Still the same, Chef Laurent, still doing the great stuff they do there with their classical French dishes. They have, locally sourced fish. They have great steaks. They do a lot of cool seasonal stuff with pumpkins, and they make a really good risotto. And they also do lunch and dinner. After that, I was the executive chef at a short-lived venture called Vine, also in Paso Robles, where we try to do a steakhouse vibe, but sometimes, the stars don't align and things don't always work out as they're planned. So that ended up lasting about 6 to 7 months. And unfortunately, we had to shut down there. After that, I met Mr. Tommy Medeiros, who owns and operates a local food service company called MedCorp Food Services, and I've been a corporate chef for him for the past 2 years now. So that's been, a little bit of history on me. I think back to when I first started, and everything that I was cooking for, was mainly just for taste. I would cook things, I would create things just for flavor, and that's good. You really need that. But then as I got older, the importance and how much I valued nutrition really escalated, especially, as my body wasn't able to just take down burgers with over easy eggs on it every day, which, don't get me wrong, there's a special place in my heart for a good burger with the right grind and the right meat variation to be topped with an ooey gooey, sunny side up egg. Don't get me, that's one of my favorite things still to this day. But nutrition definitely started influencing my palate and the things that I cook, because I want my body to run well as be happy with what I put in it. And so within the last, 5 years or so, I've really put an influence on that, and that's really changed my scope of work, essentially, to the fact that I want, the things that I put in my body to really benefit my body further than just how it tastes going in. So I really think that today, and moving forward, and definitely in my recent past, that a lot of the things that I've been cooking, I've been researching, how oils play an effect on what we cook, because that's definitely something that's at the least of our minds. That's not even something we're thinking about when we're starting out cooking. We're trying to make something that doesn't taste dry or is not overdone, and at the very least, just not burn the house down. And then if you have kids you're cooking for, I can only imagine the struggles with time management, as well as trying to make something that you can convince, your kids to eat, especially when they're being coaxed and tempted by Reese's and McDonald's, which, don't get me wrong, time and time, every now and again, I find myself craving a nice sausage McMuffin, or even a McGriddle. I don't know what it is about a McGriddle that holds a special place in my heart. Dude, I even remember when a McGriddle first came out, and just thinking about a sandwich with a pancake bun, really rattled my brain. It was something that I couldn't fathom, but now, it holds a weird place in my heart. Definitely could be classed as an inhibition, I guess. And then those hash brown patties, I don't know what they're putting in there. It's not normal potatoes. And then with keto and everything going on, carbohydrates and sugars, I'm limiting, to say the least, my intake on potatoes. I can remember in my earlier days when I first heard of Jennie-O and all this ground turkey was a big fad. I remember my first time making a turkey burger, and it was on a special that we were serving. The only thing I could think of when I was making it, I was so nervous in the beginning that I just didn't want to send it out undercooked, and I didn't have the wherewithal that I do now to be able to tell by the coloration of the meat. I'm going beyond the fact that, obviously if it's not pink, it's probably done. But now in my years of experience, I can you can tell by the sound it's making and while it's cooking, and how much juice is actually coming out of the meat. So that's what I mean by telling by look or touch. And the only thing I could think of was, don't send this out undercooked. And I feel bad, because that first person that I ever sent a turkey burger to was probably maliciously overdone. like, well, not maliciously, not like I did it intentionally. Yeah, I did intentionally not overcook it, but I just feel he loved the burger, I'm sure. Because it didn't get sent back, which is not always the best telltale, because most people, if they get something they don't like, they're just trying to, be on with their day, and a lot of people avoid conflict, so even if he hated it, he may have not sent it back. But I've since grown in my talent. But yeah, I digress. I kind of got off topic with that. I can also remember my first times being asked to work saute. I was very nervous because being brought up on a traditional American diet, I didn't very frequently eat nice cuts of halibut. It was definitely something that I couldn't afford on my daily budget. So when I was being asked to make halibut and salmon, it was definitely not something that I ate, and not something that I ate very often. So being able to, or being asked, to serve something out at medium, of which I never really consumed, was a difficult task, but something that I ended up managing and ended up owning pretty well. And now, even at this moment right now, I have, fresh fish in my household. It's definitely something that's on my regimen of what I like to put in my body, especially, with the good mix of, the good balance of omega-3s and omega-6s. That topic specifically is something that I'd like to get into on the podcast as well, because a lot of oils, they have omega-3s and omega-6s in them. The problem is the balance that they have in there is not, proper to what our body really wants. So that's where, cooking with oils comes into play, because everything that you put on your food, salt, pepper, the oils, and the sides plays an effect on its nutritional value. So these are things that I'm going to be getting into here on the podcast. Things that could be overlooked, things that are seldom thought about. We'll be talking about kitchen techniques, things that we can execute at home. I just, really want to give back this knowledge that I've acquired over my 15 years, of cooking, that can really benefit people in their day-to-day lives. I just want to, bestow everybody the techniques that I've honed in and the techniques from some chefs that I've met along the way, just to kind of just to give everybody a better overall understanding of what's really happening in the kitchen. The kitchen's a place that really brings people together. Food is such a vital aspect in our life, and there's so many things that food really does to us besides satisfy our hunger that we don't really think about. Now don't get me wrong at all. Satisfying hunger is a big part of it, because if you've known yourself or ever been in a relationship or had friends, I know you've seen it. When people are hungry, people are grumpy. If it wasn't true, Snickers wouldn't be putting out these commercials with, Betty White and everybody turning into divas when they're hungry. So don't be discouraged. We're definitely going to tackle your hunger. We're going to show you guys some tasty things that you can make at home, but we're also going to let you know why they're good for you, aside from the fact that they taste good. If there's, any specific questions that you may have, please feel free to send me an audio message. I will be taking some audio messages and playing them back on the podcast and answering your guys' questions. hit me up on social media. We're at Chefs Talking Chop on Instagram. Please share anything that you hear that you like with your friends and family, because I'm just trying to, give back these techniques that I've honed in and share with you guys my mistakes, things that I've learned, through trials, and really just get everybody on a better page for living their best life. We have to eat. Everybody's got to eat every day. Unless you're fasting, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to be had, and I really hope that I can have a couple episodes just dedicated to the nutritional benefits and the physiological benefits of fasting, as well as when to work out and what times a day, because there's different times of days that your body responds better to carbohydrates. Because don't get me wrong, like, I love potatoes. This keto thing isn't, I wouldn't say it's just a fad. There's research to show benefits, but there's also research that shows other things, as well as, like, your body is less prone to respond to insulin in the evenings. So if you're gonna take a dive in and go for those potatoes, doing it in the evenings probably a little better, after you've already had a heavy workout. And I know that may make some people's ears cringe and your face squint up just at the thought of working out. But I'm hoping, that you can come to know me enough to trust me, and when I have these podcasts talking about when to work out and how it affects your body and the stuff that you put in there, that maybe you listen a little bit. Or maybe you don't, and that's fine too. Everybody has their time to when things really hit them. So if not today, maybe tomorrow. But like I said, if you have any things that you'd want to hear us talk about, if you have any questions that you want me to ask, local personalities or chefs or business owners, like, what did they do before this, or what was their worst job, send it in to me. Let me know, and maybe I'll play you back on the podcast when I'm interviewing them. Well, guys, this has been Chef Andrew with Chefs Talking Chop, and thank you for your time.